When you think of Roman entertainment, what's the first image that comes to mind? It's the Colosseum, isn't it? A grim-faced gladiator, sword in hand with his fate hanging on the whim of a roaring crowd. That image is powerful, but it's also a tiny, incomplete piece of the puzzle. To focus only on gladiators is to see the vibrant, complex world of Roman leisure through a pinhole. Welcome to 10-Minute History. I'm your host, Jake Sullivan, and today we're going beyond the blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum to discover what the average Roman really did for fun. And I promise you it's a world of speed, scandal, and high-stakes obsession that makes our own entertainment look tame. The real heart of Roman entertainment wasn't the Colosseum. It was a place 3 times bigger, a place that could hold over 250,000 people. It was the Circus Maximus, and its sport was the undisputed king of Roman spectacles, chariot racing. This wasn't just a sport, it was an all-consuming passion, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and a political powder keg all rolled into one. The Circus Maximus itself was an architectural wonder, a colossal stone and concrete valley 621 meters long. That's over 2,000 feet. Inside, a sand-covered track wrapped around a decorated central barrier called the spina. This barrier was adorned with statues, fountains, and massive Egyptian obelisks stolen from a conquered land. And on that spina were the all-important lap counters, 7 golden eggs and 7 bronze dolphins, which were lowered or tipped one by one to mark each of the 7 grueling laps. A day at the races was an assault on the senses. The roar of 250,000 people, the thunder of hooves, the splintering crash of a chariot, and the thick dust kicked up into the air. But the real magic, the thing that drove the city mad, wasn't just the race itself. It was the factions. Forget simple teams. The factions were massive, privately owned corporations that commanded fanatical loyalty. There were 4 main factions, each with its own color: the reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens. Over time, it really boiled down to a titanic rivalry between the blues and the greens. Supporting a faction was part of your identity. People wore their faction's colors, socialized with fellow supporters, and directed a venomous hatred at their rivals. This loyalty cut across all social classes, from the emperor himself down to the poorest citizen. The Emperor Caligula was famously obsessed with the greens, while others favored the blues. This passion often exploded into violence. Riots between fans were common, and they even turned to black magic. Archaeologists have found hundreds of lead curse tablets buried near circuses. Fans would inscribe these tablets with terrifying curses, calling on demons to bind, injure, or kill rival drivers and their horses. One tablet reads, "I adjure you, demon, whoever you are, bind the horses of the greens and the whites. Bind their legs, their sinews, their minds, their spirits." This wasn't just sport, it was spiritual warfare. And at the center of this whirlwind were the charioteers, the superstars of the ancient world. Most were slaves or former slaves, yet a successful driver could achieve a level of fame and wealth that is almost unimaginable. Take the story of Gaius Appuleius Diocles, a Spanish driver who raced for 24 years in the 2nd century AD. We know his life story from a massive inscription set up in Rome to honor his retirement. It reads like a modern sports almanac. He raced 4,257 times and won 1,462 of them. The inscription even details his tactics, noting that 815 of his wins came from taking the lead at the start and staying there. But here is the truly staggering part. His total career earnings were listed as 35,863,120 sesterces. To put that in perspective, a Roman legionary soldier earned about 1,200 sesterces a year. Diocles' fortune was enough to pay the entire Roman army for several months, or to supply the city of Rome with grain for a full year. In modern terms, he was a billionaire, arguably the highest-paid athlete of all time. He achieved this fame in a brutally dangerous sport. Charioteers wrapped the reins around their waists for leverage, meaning if they crashed, they could be dragged to their death. Every driver carried a knife to try and cut himself free, but many, like the famous champion Scorpus, died on the track in their 20s. It was a life of extreme risk for extreme reward, a dream played out at breakneck speed in front of 250,000 screaming fans. But what if the high-speed thrills of the circus weren't your thing? Well, you could head to one of Rome's massive stone theaters. But here, too, the entertainment wasn't what you might expect. Formal Greek-style tragedies and comedies by playwrights like Plautus were performed, but by the time of the Empire they were seen as old-fashioned and a bit intellectual. The real crowds flocked to two newer, more scandalous forms of entertainment: mime and pantomime. Mime was the reality TV and stand-up comedy of its day. Unlike traditional actors, mime performers didn't wear masks, and crucially, the troupes included women. This fact alone horrified Roman moralists, who saw actresses as no better than prostitutes. The plots were simple, often improvised, and centered on themes of adultery, trickery, and satire. The humor was crude, physical, and frequently obscene. But mime could also take a dark and gruesome turn. In a popular mime called Laureolus, the main character, a bandit, is crucified at the end. Some emperors, looking for the ultimate special effect, would substitute a real condemned criminal for the actor in the final scene. The audience would watch a man being actually executed on stage, blurring the line between theater and the amphitheater in the most horrific way. If mime was the lowbrow hit, pantomime was its sophisticated cousin. This was a performance where a single, silent, masked male dancer would act out a complex mythological story. He was accompanied by an orchestra and a chorus that sang the story, but the star performer conveyed every character and emotion, both male and female, through dance and gesture alone. These pantomime dancers were superstars, like Pylades and Bathyllus, who had their own factions of devoted fans whose rivalries sometimes caused riots. These beautiful, sensual performers were adored by the public but condemned by the elite, especially when they had affairs with aristocratic women, which happened all the time. One superstar dancer named Paris was even executed by the Emperor Domitian for allegedly having an affair with the Empress. So, beyond the massive state-sponsored spectacles, what did Romans do in their free time? The answer, for almost everyone, was gambling. Roman law was bizarrely contradictory about gambling. It was officially illegal. A series of laws banned all betting on games of chance, and a person known to be a gambler was seen as morally corrupt and untrustworthy. However, these laws were almost universally ignored. In fact, the only time gambling was officially legal for everyone was during the week-long festival of Saturnalia in December, when all of society's rules were turned upside down. The rest of the year, people just did it anyway, from the soldiers in their barracks to the emperor in his palace. The historian Suetonius tells us that the Emperor Augustus was a casual gambler who wrote letters to his family about his friendly holiday games. The Emperor Claudius, on the other hand, was a true addict. He was so obsessed with dice that he wrote a book on the subject and even had a special gaming board built into his carriage so he could play while traveling. The most popular games were dice games. Romans used six-sided dice identical to ours, as well as four-sided knucklebones called tali. They also loved board games that combined luck and strategy. The most popular was a game called Duodecim Scripta, or 12 Lines, which was a direct ancestor of modern backgammon. Players would roll 3 dice to move their 15 pieces around a board, trying to be the first to bear them all off. These games were played everywhere, but the main hubs were the thousands of taverns, or popinae, that dotted the city. These were the smoky, noisy social centers of the lower classes, places where you could get a cheap meal, watered-down wine, and a game of dice, a combination that the Roman elite found utterly repulsive. So what does this all tell us? Why was this world of entertainment beyond the Colosseum so important? First, it was a masterful tool of political control. The phrase panem et circenses, or bread and circuses, was first coined by the satirist Juvenal as a bitter critique. He claimed the people of Rome had traded their political power for free grain and spectacular games. And he was right. The emperors understood that by providing food and entertainment, they could keep a massive, potentially restless population distracted, happy, and loyal. The games were a safety valve for social tension, channeling passion into the safe rivalry of the chariot factions. Second, this was a massive economic engine. The entertainment industry employed thousands, from the architects who built the venues to the horse breeders in Spain and North Africa, the actors on stage, and the food vendors who catered to the crowds. But perhaps the most important takeaway is how much of this Roman world is still with us. The fanatical loyalty to the greens and blues is instantly recognizable in modern sports fans wearing their team's colors. The staggering wealth and celebrity status of a charioteer like Diocles is the ancient template for superstars like Lionel Messi or LeBron James. The very architecture of our stadiums and racetracks is a direct descendant of the Circus Maximus. The Romans' struggle with gambling, balancing legal prohibition against popular demand, is a debate we are still having today. The Roman emperors were the first to master, on an imperial scale, the art of ruling through spectacle. And that model, of using mass entertainment to shape public mood and maintain support, has been copied by rulers and governments ever since. So the next time you watch a football game, go to a concert, or even just see the movie Ben-Hur, remember the Circus Maximus. You are seeing the echo of a world that understood, better than almost any other, the power of a roaring crowd. So what are your thoughts on this? What part of Roman entertainment do you find most fascinating? Let us know down in the comments below. If you found this interesting or learned something new, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to 10-Minute History for more deep dives. Thanks for listening.